In today's modern, fast-paced world, consumers demand both quality and safety in the foods they consume. Dairy foods are no different. You as the milk hauler serve a very important part in the quality and safety that must be met to meet these customer demands. Your role and activities are critical to the milk's quality. You serve as a representative of both the dairy farmers and the milk processing companies. In fact, the farm milk hauler is the key person in sampling and measuring the dairy farmer's raw milk. As a licensed permitted weigher and hauler, you stand as the official and frequently the only judge of raw milk volumes bought and sold. As a milk receiver, your first responsibility is to determine if the milk even meets certain necessary quality standards in order to be purchased by the milk processor. If it is, the next responsibility is to make sure that the milk is weighed properly so that the farmer receives the proper payment for the amount of milk he is selling and the milk processor receives the correct amount of milk that is being purchased. The third responsibility is that the milk is sampled properly so there is an accurate record of the quality of milk being produced by the farmer. The fourth requirement is that the milk be picked up and transported to the milk plant in a safe, sanitary, courteous manner. Along with these responsibilities, it is important that you maintain a good relationship with the milk producers on your route and the milk processing companies receiving the milk that you're hauling. You should report any problems with the farm's milk production to the dairy field representatives and seek advice about these problems for the dairy producer. You must obey all rules of the milk processing companies and make sure that they, too, are fulfilling their responsibilities, especially when it comes to properly sampling your milk and washing the interior of your tank. You must also portray a good image for the milk industry. The name of your company must be properly identified on your vehicle. The outside of the truck and tanker should be clean. You should always wear a clean uniform and never use tobacco in any form while in the milk room. To do the best possible job, you need to be well informed and knowledgeable about quality milk production, milk sampling, sample care procedures, potential use of samples. It is essential for you to evaluate the milk at each farm on your route to determine its acceptability to be commingled with the rest of your milk on the truck. Mixing adulterated and or otherwise poor quality milk from one farm with good milk from the other farms on your route will likely result in all the milk on your load having to be discarded. For that reason, as well as others, samples must be aseptically collected each time milk is picked up at a farm. These samples may be used for a variety of tests, including drug residue testing, bacterial analyses, somatic cell counts, cryoscopes or added water, and butterfat analyses. Not only are these samples needed for testing by the milk processing companies receiving the milk, but also at times by the milk marketing companies and the regulatory agencies responsible for the dairy producers. The samples that you collect are often used for regulatory compliance work, including the requirement of having a producer sample on file a minimum of 4 times in a 6-month period. A sample incorrectly collected and handled usually results in the producer not getting an accurate analysis of the milk he is producing. This could, of course, result in him not receiving production quality incentives from the milk marketing company that he belongs to, and can also result in trouble with the regulatory agencies responsible for his farm. Therefore, let's review the procedural aspects of this very important job. These sampling procedures are defined in the latest editions of the Grade A Pasteurized Milk Ordinance and standard methods for the examination of dairy products. To begin your collection procedures, you should take your milk sample container, usually referred to as a dipper well, into the milk room. In this dipper well, you should of course have an approved, clean, seamless metal sample dipper in good repair with a long handle and a capacity of at least 10 milliliters. The dipper well should be equipped with an acceptable cover to prevent spillage and contamination, and at all times filled with a sanitizing solution that is bactericidal, equivalent to 200 ppm chlorine, 25 ppm iodine, or other approved equivalent strength sanitizers. A test kit must be available at all times to check the strength of the sanitizing solution. Since a chlorine sanitizer is usually readily available, an approved chlorine test kit should be carried on the truck should additional sanitizer be needed while on the farms. Make sure to follow the test kit directions to make certain that the correct sanitizer strength is being used. It should never be too weak or too strong. If it is too weak, the dipper will not be sanitized properly, and if too strong, there's a greater chance for the carryover of the sanitizing solution into the sample, resulting in invalid sample results. You should now pass the truck's capped milk hose through the hose port, not through the window or door. Careful attention should be given to keeping the milk hose on the concrete pad under the hose port so as to keep the milk hose as clean as possible. On the first stop of the day, remember to take an additional approved sample container, sterile bags, vials, or bottles into the milk room for a temperature control. No additional temperature controls will be needed at the remaining stops on that route. Remember that all sample containers must be properly stored as to be protected from contamination prior to use. Now, remove the cap from the bulk tank outlet valve and examine the valve for leakage, milk deposits, or other foreign matter. Rinse the valve and sanitize it when necessary. This is why you should always carry a spray bottle of sanitizer on your truck so that it will be easy to sanitize outlet valves when necessary. Remove the cap from your transfer hose and connect the hose to the milk tank outlet valve. Be sure to protect the hose cap from contamination while it is removed from the transfer hose. Wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water in the hand wash sink and dry hands with a clean, single-service towel or air dryer. Be sure to keep hands clean during the sampling process. Open the lid of the bulk tank and examine the milk by sight and smell for any off odors, foreign objects, or other abnormalities. Note these abnormalities on the weigh ticket and reject picking up the milk if necessary. If the tank is equipped with an internal measuring stick, it should be dried with a clean single-service paper towel and carefully inserted into the tank. Read the milk measurement and repeat the procedure until 2 identical measurements are taken. This will be discussed in greater detail near the end of this presentation. Remember that any measuring sticks stored outside the bulk tanks must be clean and properly sanitized before inserting them into the milk inside the tank. Some tanks are equipped with an external measuring tube or hose that works by connecting them to an outlet valve where the milk in the external tube reaches the sample level as the milk is in the tank for measuring purposes. The milk in the tube is then discarded after the milk measurement has been taken, and the measuring tube must be thoroughly rinsed of any milk residue. Turn on the agitator. Agitate at least 5 minutes before taking the samples for tanks under 1,500 gallon capacities and 10 minutes for tanks over 1,500 gallon capacities. Check the temperature of the milk. If the hauler's certified calibrated pocket thermometer is used for this check, it must be sanitized for a minimum of 60 seconds prior to use. If the bulk tank thermometer is used for recording milk tank temperatures, the hauler must at least once a month check the accuracy of the bulk tank thermometer by comparing it to a certified calibrated thermometer. A record of this comparison must be made and documented in a visible location, such as on the farm weigh ticket or on a milkroom calendar. Also, remember that all hauler thermometers must be certified for accuracy of plus or minus 1 degree centigrade at least once every 6 months and tagged for accuracy. Record the milk measurement, temperature of the milk, time, date of pickup, and hauler identification on the farm weigh ticket. Legibly identify each sample container with the producer name or number, date and time of collection including AM and PM unless military time is used, bulk tank temperature, and hauler's identification. The extra sample container collected at the first stop must be collected and identified the same way as are the other samples. However, it needs to be also identified as the temperature control or TC. Remove the dipper from the sanitizing solution and rinse it at least twice in the milk. Fill the sample container approximately but no more than 3/4 full. Be careful to not hold the sample container over the bulk tank while transferring the sample into the container. This is so no milk will accidentally drip back into the bulk tank during the sampling process. Close the opening of the sample container, making sure not to expel air when folding or whirling plastic bags in order to leave 1/4 of the volume as airspace. Close the bulk tank lid or cover during completion of pickup. Rinse the dipper in clean water and replace in the sample dipper container. With the agitator running, open the bulk tank outlet valve and start the pump. Carry the samples and sample equipment to the truck. Immediately place the samples in an insulated cooler with a tight-fitting lid. The samples should be placed in an approved refrigerant, usually an ice water bath, with the ice water only slightly higher than that of the milk. Do not bury the tops of the samples in ice. Also, the samples must be protected from contamination while in the cooler. Contamination by ice water can be prevented by using racks, compartments, or other means. Replace the cover on the sample storage case. Turn off the agitator on the bulk tank when the level of the milk is below the level that will cause overagitation. Disconnect the transfer hose when pumping is complete and cap the hose. Observe the walls and bottom of the tank for dirt and other foreign material and record any objectionable observation on the weigh ticket or hauler manifest. With the outlet valve open, thoroughly rinse the entire interior of the tank with warm water and the exterior, especially under and around the manhole cover. Start the tank washer unless instructed otherwise by the producer. Rinse spilled milk from the milkroom floor and exterior of the milk tank. Hang up the rinse hose and put all waste in the waste container. Make sure that the milkroom door is properly closed and lights turned off. To save time when you arrive at a farm and the agitator is already running on the milk tank, it is recommended that you go ahead and start timing the proper agitation cycle and collect your samples prior to measuring the milk in the tank. Otherwise, the same procedures still apply. There is one additional type tank that does not have a traditional lid or manhole opening on the top of the tank and must be sampled by a different procedure since the manhole opening is on the side of the tank with the milk level usually above the manhole opening. This type tank normally has a sampling cock built into the manhole. While the milk is being agitated following the same criteria used for standard milk tanks, prepare a sanitizing solution of proper strength and pour it into a clean bag. Submerge the sampling cock by fitting the bag of sanitizer over and around it, holding the top of the bag of sanitizing solution tightly around the body of the sampling valve. Flush the sanitizer in and out of the sampling cock for at least 1 minute. Then purge the sampling cock valve with at least 2 liters, approximately 1/2 gallon of milk, which is then discarded. Hold the sample container under the sampling cock and fill it with the same amount as you would for any other milk sample. Now that the farm sampling procedures have been discussed, we're now going to discuss some guidelines for properly measuring milk in the bulk tanks. A reading should always be taken with the agitator not running and the milk in a quiet state. When a reading is obtained from a meniscus formed by the milk, the reading line is the position of the highest point of the center of the meniscus. The reading should be to the nearest graduation. If the indication appears to be exactly midway between 2 graduations, the reading should be recorded as that of the graduation having an even designation. For example, if the indication appears to be precisely midway between the graduations 17 and 5/30 seconds and 17 and 6/30 seconds, the reading would be recorded as 17 and 6/30 seconds, which equals 1,290 pounds. Similarly, an indication precisely halfway between graduations 17 and 12/30 seconds and 17 and 13/30 seconds should be recorded as 17 and 12/30 seconds, which equals 1,304 pounds. It basically all equals out, since one time you credit the producer with a little more than he actually has, and another time you give him a little less. When converting the gauge reading, be sure to use the chart that's designated for the milk tank from which the reading is being taken. If there is any question, the serial number of the milk tank is required to be on the conversion chart. The hauler should periodically inspect the tank legs to determine whether there has been any movement of the tank due to settling or cracking of the milk house floor. Any sign of movement should be reported, since any change in the position of the tank could result in an error in the measurement of the milk. After the milk is collected at the farm, it should be delivered to the processing plant in a timely manner. The temperature of the milk and milk samples must be at a maximum temperature of 45 degrees Fahrenheit when they arrive at the processing plant. This is a regulatory requirement, while some processing plants may have even more stringent temperature requirements. The samples must be taken out of the insulated cooler and delivered promptly to the designated sample refrigerator at the plant. The hauler manifest should also be included with the samples. Once the commingled milk in the bulk tank has been sampled and tested as acceptable by the milk processing plant's laboratory, it can then be pumped into the plant's raw storage tanks. After it's received and while the interior of the tank is being washed and sanitized, it's the hauler's responsibility to wash and sanitize the milk transfer hose, the milk pump, and all product contact surfaces not reached by the plant's interior tank wash system. The non-product contact surfaces of the milk pump housing areas should also be cleaned at this time. When all surfaces are properly cleaned, the plant will affix a wash tag to the truck, which must remain attached to the milk tanker until it arrives at its next milk plant destination. Now you're ready for that next busy pickup day. Thanks for all you do to help make the milk industry in this country the best in the world. Be careful out there. You're too important to lose.